right, race fans, we're back at you again. Episode number 202 for the group here. I'm Ryan Aho. That is the one and only Bert Lehman and Coach Kraus back in the house again tonight. How you guys doing?
Doing good.
Kraus, the question I got for you, a little hockey this weekend, right? We didn't go to any races. I don't think we went to any sporting events, but you did. Did you guys win? How'd you guys do in hockey?
We split. We went 1-1. We won Friday, lost on Saturday. So, but overall played well. If we play well and we lose, we outshot them. I get that happens. You just get beat. You just get beat. So a little more hockey this weekend. Didn't watch much racing, watch a little bit, but good to be back on the show.
Absolutely. Good to have you back. And any bench clears? Any bench clearing brawls, close, anything like that? We need something exciting.
I threatened a bench clearing brawl. I wasn't real happy with the ref. I thought they were being a little cheap, a little dirty, and I called the ref over and I said, next time one of my guy gets elbowed in the head and breaks his nose, I'm sending the bench. So then he didn't talk to me the rest of the game. I didn't make very many friends down in Rochester.
That's what it's all about. See, that's more exciting. That's passion right there. Got to have it. So episode 202 of the One to Go show brought to you by Impact Health Sharing. So if you're looking for health insurance, are you sick of not being able to go to the doctor you want to go to? Are you sick of paying like way too much for something you barely ever use, right? If them are a couple things that are just on your mind, if you're looking for health insurance, health coverage, hit me up. I have a great product out there. It's called Impact Health Sharing, a great alternative to overpriced health insurance. My number, 218-969-1380. You can text me, you can call me, hit me up on Messenger. I'll get you a quick, no-obligation quote, get you some information, see if we can help you out. So we talked a little hockey there. We watched a little bit of racing. Season never really ends. But let's jump into it. Top stories of the week. There are still a few exciting things that happened in the racing world. And before we do that, a little shout out here, Daytona 1 Performance Lubricants. What are they passionate about? Keeping money in your pocket. If you're a racer, if you're a race team owner, right, and you're looking at the bottom line going, my goodness, how do we save money? They have some great products out there. Lubricants for all purposes, right? Everything from gears to transmissions to engines and everything in between. Plus, they have some great products out there to help you get more life out of them Hoosier tires that we all know they cost too much and they don't last long enough. That's just the nature of the beast. But they have a product out there proven in the Daytona 1 Performance Lubricants Gen X Late Model Series. They have to run used tires. They're having great results with those products. Give Chad a call, 507-828-3536. He can get you all the information that you need. So, boys, let's start with this. For Brad again, our buddy Brad, Asphalt Guy, Asphalt Brad Carr, whatever you want to call it. But, guys, it was championship weekend for the playoffs for the top 3 levels in NASCAR racing. First thing I got to do, though, is I got to give a tip of the cap, a shout-out to our boy Shannon down there, fan of the show, down representing Bert. I don't know if I sent you the picture. You probably got the email from Puka. So Shannon was down in Phoenix with a Billiam shirt on, our unwritten rules line of apparel. He even had a picture, right, a selfie with a picture of Billiam on the phone, like he was just got done watching the video. So thanks a lot for representing the One to Go show down NASCAR weekend in Phoenix. I thought that was pretty cool. So, guys, it came down to the final race. I know Bert's a huge fan of this playoff series. Absolutely love it. Big proponent of it. Bert, am I correct? You went to the meeting, the banquet for the Wabam Dirt King series, and you tried really pushing that in there to get a playoff series for that. But it came down to it, right? You got the Craftsman Trucks race this weekend on Friday, the Xfinity Series Saturday, and then, of course, the top level, the NASCAR Craftsman Trucks. Did either of you guys get an opportunity to watch the races, portion of the races, the highlights, last few laps, anything like that?
I saw the last 20 laps of the Cup race, the overtime of Xfinity, and the link you sent me for the truck finish. Nothing showed up on it, so
okay.
I didn't see that one.
So I'll just start with the trucks. I mean, there was 4 overtimes in the trucks, right? And the difference between the Cup and the Xfinity is the people battling for the championship in those two were up front. They were battling, in the top 5. In the trucks, they weren't. They were back a little bit. Ben Rhodes ended up winning the points. He was 5th on the final of the 4 overtime finishes. Grant Enfinger, he was actually battling for, trying to win that championship. Boy, I don't know exactly what spot he was in, guys, but I feel like it was like 12th or something like that on that restart. And he absolutely brought it and got next to Rhodes on the last lap. In fact, turned him sideways a little bit, but came up a little bit short. So quite the exciting finish. 5th and 6th, they ended up in the race, but 5th and 6th battling for that championship. A lot of excitement there. The Xfinity race, probably the most exciting of the 3 races was this one. Overtime, right? 2 of the drivers in the championship. You had John Hunter Nemechek inside, and you had Cole Custer on the outside. Green, white, checkered finish. Nemechek, great restart, gets the lead, buries it into turn 1, slides up, takes the line. Guy's right front tire goes down. Right front tire goes in, slaps the fence, falls back to like 20th. Unbelievable heartbreak for Nemechek. Cole Custer goes on to win the race and the championship, but a lot of drama there. And then I know you guys watched, I know Jeff definitely watched some of the Cup race. I think we were texting back and forth. And the Ross Chastain just flat out kind of dominated that race. Now, I will say that I believe the second place driver, which was Ryan Blaney, who went on to win the championship, probably had it in coast mode there a little bit. He probably was like, you know what? Kyle Larson's not quite there, but he had to pass Kyle Larson to win it. So your thoughts on what you saw there? Okay, I know, Bert, you saw the overtime in the Xfinity. Kraus, you watched the Cup race. Any thoughts from these 2 races? And then I have a question for both of you.
Well, I mean, as far as the Cup race, Larson was in position to win it, and then Blaney was battling with him. But yeah, once Blaney got by Larson, I mean, Blaney had the better car for the day. I mean, there's no doubt about that between the 2 of them. And yeah, I mean, regarding John Hunter and Nemechek in the Xfinity, it is heartbreak. I guess we can put that as something like, when the Dallas Cowboys were in the Super Bowl in the 70s and their tight end dropped the touchdown in the end zone, if you want to equate it to regular sports. Or I guess, in an NFC championship game, a kicker missing the field goal to go to the Super Bowl.
Okay, so Bert, I want you to understand something. Coach Kraus literally was just talking about a bench clearing brawl. He's a violent man. He's not afraid to smack around a Packer fan. I'm just going to go ahead and be honest with you. All right. So Kraus, your thoughts on the race? I mean, I know that a little bit of contact there between Blaney and Larson. He had the faster car. I think maybe either took air off him or kind of clipped his right rear going by. But I guess any thoughts on the race, and then I'll jump to the question.
Yeah, I thought overall it was a good race. I pretty much watched start to finish. Watched a lot of the pre-race stuff too. I'm a big Kevin Harvick fan. So obviously it was his last race, and a lot of stuff going down there with him. So I was obviously watched the race, and I thought it was a good race. I can't stand Phoenix. I don't like watching races at that track. There's just it's kind of slow. It's kind of boring. Yeah, I think it's kind of a little bit stupid when they come down that short chute there, 6 wide or whatever they are, shooting down there towards into the bottom, and the guys on the high side. So I'm not a real big fan of that. I am a big fan of watching the Final Four and them duking it out, and super happy that it was a really good race. Larson and Blaney were putting on a show there for a while, and really good to see Ryan Blaney. Obviously, dirt background with his dad and his uncle. Pretty cool to see him, and Roger Penske's obviously a class act too. See him get another championship, and I just thought it was overall a good race. It's fun, exciting. The place was jam packed, a lot of atmosphere. I thought, and it's NASCAR, it's the biggest in the world. I thought they did a really good job with the pre-race and all the festivities, and the fans get paired up with the driver to win a bunch of money and a chance to do a bunch of stuff. So they do it right, and they make it fun and they make it exciting. So I'm just not a fan of the track. Obviously, they need to put in warm weather where it is, but it's good to see Blaney win. And I thought it was overall for them. It was a good race.
And I just wanted to touch. Jeff made the comment that it was jam packed. I actually was listening to NASCAR on Sirius Radio and a NASCAR channel the day after, and they said that it was a sellout for the Cup race. And when was the last time that you heard that for a Cup race?
Well, that leads me to this, right? Does this playoff system, does it work?
It depends what your goal is. In NASCAR's case, they wanted something that was going to get TV viewership because a lot of their money comes from their TV contract and TV ratings. So the higher the ratings, the more money they can get in future contracts. So in NASCAR's case, yes, it works because you get more people in the stands and you get more viewership. Now, dirt racing, we talk a lot about streaming and it's moving to streaming. And so in that case, it's kind of, they're probably going to be looking for the same formula NASCAR has.
I mean, quite honestly, right? You kind of paused there a little bit when you came around. I was kind of waiting for you to go to the other direction. As far as creating excitement and interest in the race itself, it seems to be working, Coach.
Yeah, you can't top the excitement and the entertainment. You can't. After Eldora, after the NASCAR deal, I texted you right away and said, and we got the meetings coming up. It's a perfect opportunity for Wasota to hop on board and do something. It's a perfect opportunity for some of these local racetracks to do a Final Four or to do something. Somebody's got to do it because after watching the Lucas and then even the NASCAR deal, if you don't do it here shortly, you're going to be behind the 8 ball, and then everybody's going to be doing it, and you're not going to draw as much as excitement to yourself as you would right now. So, I watched NASCAR pretty heavy early on. Then they get into the road courses, and I don't really get into that stuff. And then when do you turn the NASCAR back on? Well, when the playoffs start, and then they got they go 16-12 down to 8, and then they get the Final Four. So they got a little bit different format there. Obviously, they a little bit more more races and spread out. So people better start hopping on board and start doing some playoff formats, Bert, because I think we're going to be seeing it a lot more in racing.
Here I got a question for both of you guys. Because I thought long and hard about this. I looked at RTJ's situation. I'm like, that is just terrible, right? He had a 8 billion point lead, loses the championship because of the format. It sucks for him. Good for everybody else. It sucks for him, right? Then I thought, could this work in Wasota for the national standings? Now, I don't know, right? Because let's say you decide that you want to end the Wasota season at the Wasota 100. And you're going to have a chase format, right? And they do the same thing there. That is a 100% distinct advantage to the drivers that race at that racetrack. So would not necessarily be fair if somebody, if TPO, Brady Gertis, Don Shaw, whatever, they race there every single week. Distinct, huge advantage to the guy that races there weekly. Now, back in the DTRA era, guys, 06, 07, I believe it was. Cedar Lake, Superior, Grand Forks, Monster Hall, several tracks went DTRA. They utilized that chase format, a hybrid of it. And what they did is they took your best X amount of shows, and you could pick the number, it could be 20, 25, whatever. You pick the number, and they had them shows before mid-August, and they said, okay, anybody locked into the top 10 by mid-August is into the chase, and then they took your best X amount of shows from there on after. That would maybe be an alternative, but I think they would almost have to do like a random draw for each individual weekend. So that way you didn't have driver A going over and racing against 11 cars and then driver B going, my track, we got 60 cars. So do a random draw for each individual weekend for each individual class. So not like Labor Day weekend, hey, we drew out Hibbing Raceway. Well, that doesn't mean it's Hibbing for everything. It could be Viking Speedway for the mods, Hibbing Raceway for the Midwest mods, so on and so forth. There is a way to make it work. So people would have to kind of take some time and kind of draw it out and kind of look at it. But as much as I hate it, I love it, and I hate that I love it because Kraus is right. I mean, our sport is lacking excitement right now. It's lacking passion. It's lacking that true passionate fan. This could maybe help it. I don't know that, but I don't know. It seemed to work in those two instances. So, any final thoughts on championship weekend in NASCAR? Or should we jump on to the next one?
Well, I just
Yeah.
want to touch on one. Okay, sorry. Just one thing. I mean, even though I don't like the format, it is what it is. It's going to be here. I just wish it was more of like, racing, like, it was 3 races or 4 races, and then you take the points for those. I mean, actually, football and college basketball. They're the only sports where it comes down to one game. Otherwise, baseball, 7-game series. Hockey has a 7-game series. Basketball has a 7-game series. I'd rather just see a few more races. But anyway, now I forgot what I was going to say. So, Kraus, if you were going to say something, say something. I forgot what I was going to say.
Yeah, I know. I just got to say, I was texting you, Ryan. We're treated pretty well when we get to listen to Steve Letarte, Dale Earnhardt Jr., and Jeff Burton as broadcasters too. I think the rest of us, dirt track racing world outlaws, they need to look at that and find some good people listening to those 3 is unbelievable. The knowledge you got. Obviously, Jeff Burton was never won a championship, but obviously, Dale Jr., Steve Letarte won championships. It's awesome listening to those guys, and obviously having your main announcer. So we're treated pretty well with that. And as far as the format, I'd like to see it. The thing with Wasota, Ryan, is you have, let's take super stocks. I mean, yeah, Shane Zabrowski and Dexton Cook run against each other pretty often, but Trevor Nelson doesn't. Dylan Nelson sometimes. You know what I mean? You're going to take Chad Becker, Cole Searing get to race against TPO and whoever else. Get them to I-94. Everybody's raced at I-94. If you haven't raced at I-94, you shouldn't be in dirt track racing because everybody's raced there. You know what I mean? And super stocks don't race there weekly, so who has an advantage there? You know what I mean? So I think getting into a Final Four there and would be pretty cool to witness.
I like what Bert said about not just having it come down to one race, have it come down to 3 or 4 races. Take your top 4, top 5, and be like, okay, you get 3 races here, 4 races. I kind of like that idea.
And I do remember what I was going to say. I mean, if a series or, if they're going to have that type of a format where it comes down to one race, especially in the dirt world, you better have a track prep crew that can get a track prep that's going to be racy. I mean, the last late model feature in Charlotte was a good one. But the first 2 nights, if those would have been a championship race, that it would have been awful.
Yeah, that is a huge variable on dirt as compared to asphalt. I mean, not that asphalt can't get trained up, but it's kind of a little bit different. So speaking of Charlotte, let's jump into that number 2 World Final, Charlotte, right? So you had World of Outlaw late models, you had the World of Outlaw sprints, and you had the super dirt car, the beasts of the Northeast, the big block modifieds. And they came down to the final 3 nights. They didn't have a chase format. The points were pretty much already kind of determined for the win. Of course, Pierce won in the late models. Brad Sweet getting it done. And Gravel tried his darnest. He won the first night, but just Sweet was just too strong. And then Matt Shepard, who won 2 of the 3 races down there, capped off his season in style. So we'll look at the winners. You had Marlar, RTJ won 2. Marlar won 1, RTJ won the next 2. Gravel, Brent Marks, and Brad Sweet were your winners. That was a good race, that final one. Brad Sweet got by Rico with like 2 to go on that final night. Rico probably should have moved down, but he kind of said in victory lane. I know Dan mentioned it to me. He said in victory lane that he kind of was set up for the top, so maybe going down would have been a bad deal. And then Shepard, Tim Fuller, old late model guy, right? Remember, kind of teammate there with T-Mac. He won night number 2. But let me ask you this. I'll just ask the question. Think about the intensity, the overall vibe going into the Dirt Track World Championships at Eldora with their playoff format as compared Okay, I'm not talking about the race, and I'm talking about the build up to the race. How did it compare between Lucas Oil's build up to the Dirt Track World Championship compared to the World Racing Group's build up to the World Finals at Charlotte? Was it even close?
No, it wasn't even close. Because I mean, there is mathematical chances of drivers winning the championship, but for all intents and purposes, the champions were decided before that weekend.
Yeah, so it just didn't seem to have that same vibe. Now, with that said, oh my God, was the crowd packed? And I'm talking all 3 nights, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I'm like, that place was absolutely jam packed. So maybe they kind of proved it right there. Hey, we didn't really need the build up to fill the grandstands, and I guarantee there was nothing else going on. Everybody was watching. If you're a dirt fan, so I mean, we didn't have quite the build up, but they kind of end with the same result.
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough to. You look at the crowd, and ticket prices were. What do you say? Was it $60 a head?
60 per person each night to get into the grandstands.
Okay, and it sounds like I know I heard some rumors that the concessions prices were a little out of control too. So from that standpoint, I can see why they're doing that. Then you obviously got a really big purse there when you're dealing with those three nights. You're dealing with a real big purse there. But like Bert said, there was just zero. It almost just kind of seemed like a for fun kind of race. You know what I mean? The drivers, and Pierce was non-existent all three races for the most part. I think he was just waiting to grab his trophy and grab his money and crack a couple beers and go home. I think that's where he was at. So it just kind of seemed like fun. And other than, Madden, he was owly the whole weekend, complaining about the redraw and whatever else. And obviously it wasn't the redraw because he started on the pin and didn't win. He'd start third and he didn't win. He started fifth and didn't win. So it obviously wasn't the redraw there, Mr. Madden. But it just not much excitement. It would just kind of seem kind of whole hum. And I watched all of Thursday, and I couldn't watch much of Friday, Saturday. Obviously, I did on the bus, but it was day racing. Track went south in a big hurry. It just was just kind of seemed like a for fun event.
Well, I was going to ask you guys, was Bobby Pierce even there last weekend? I mean, you didn't hear his name much at all during the actual racing itself.
You really didn't, but you know whose name you did hear in the dirt late model? The old voodoo child himself, Scott Bloomquist. How about that? Time trials? I think he was like 12th or whatever in the first night for the first night, but overall fast time started on the pin for his heat race on Friday. And actually, I think he runs 7th in the feature. I don't know how he did Saturday. It was kind of mid-pack or whatever. So I was did he exceed your expectations?
Well, he exceeded my expectations for racing, for the actual racing. You guys probably didn't see this on Friday night, but once again, I will say lug nuts matter. I don't know who had Scott Bloomquist losing a tire on the show me parade laps when they put all 3 divisions on the track.
Kraus, did you see that?
No, I didn't. I heard about it. My phone was blowing up. Something about Bloomquist tires fall off under the 4 wide.
Well, they did a parade of champions like the Wasota 100. So you got World Racing Group copying Wasota. So they bring all the cars out, right? They do all the cars on the track for their big intermission deal, right? And like Bert said, tire falls off. It's like only Bloomquist. Now, before each individual race, they also did 4 wide there. So overkill, maybe?
Yeah.
Do you really need to do both? I mean, it's like, what are we doing here? But Bert, yeah, I completely forgot about that. It's like only Bloomquist. Now he's lucky it was during that and not during the 4 wide of the actual race, because you would have went KLN Charlie there.
Yeah, I was a little surprised they did the 4 wide then again right before each individual race. I think that was a little bit of overkill, and I think they need to come up with better logistics to get the cars off the track. There are cars driving through the infield, and because they had nowhere else to go, actually, if they're going to copy Wasota, they should copy Wasota completely, where they put all the one division in a line, and then the other division, and the other division, and one division peels off, and then the next division peels off. Because they had all the sprints together, then all the late models together, and it was just chaos getting off of the track.
Yeah, that was a debacle for sure. Probably the most, I guess, exciting, dramatic, crazy thing of the weekend was night number 1, heat 1 of the overall weekend. I think it was Zeb Wise, right, that hit the fence and rolled over, and the throttle stuck, and he bounced off the ground. The car would take off, and it started doing, it was doing shitties in the middle of the track until it finally cut out. Driver was okay, so that was good, but man, and the next race, right? Heat 1 and Heat 2 of the week started out with rollovers. I'm like, oh boy, it's gonna be a long week, but that kind of ended after that. So, any closing thoughts on the World Finals at Charlotte?
Yeah, last thing I had, I thought the before the race driver intros they put 3 drivers in the back of the truck, drove them in front of the stands, introduced everybody. Then you had the dirt car guys, and then the World Outlaw guys, and then there was the sprint car, and then the late model guys hanging out together. I thought that was cool. Like kind of like a NASCAR, the pre-race deal. So I thought that was a real cool deal to, hey, send all those guys by the fans, introduce them, give them a little waves. And they were right up nice and close to the fans. That was a cool deal just for all the fans to see the drivers up close.
Were they all out there?
Well, and like I said, was Bobby Pierce even there last weekend? Because he was not in his truck that he was supposed to be in. I don't know why he wasn't in the truck, but like I jokingly sent in the text to you guys, they should have docked him 200 points for that and made it interesting in the feature.
Yeah, he must have had approval or whatever. I'm not sure what happened. I don't think he does a lot of work on the car. I think that's Dad, so I have no idea what happened there.
Well, then, I did find it interesting that on the final night before the sprint car feature, they worked the track, but they only worked the bottom and the top. Well, then, so basically, the cars were just racing the top or the bottom, nobody in the middle. And then when they were preparing the track for the late models, they said, well, they didn't touch the middle because they didn't have anything that could scratch up the surface, but they did work up the middle before the late model feature, and luckily they did, because it was a good race.
They saved the best for last. That was definitely the best race of the weekend for sure. So let's jump into our top moment of the week here, and it actually came right before the show. Came this week here. Brought to you by Brad Parsons Soil and Ag Solution. If you're over in Western Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, if you farm, right? If you farm over there and you're looking, how can I possibly create more revenue? How can I be more profitable? How can I have higher yields? Well, the first thing you need to do is call Brad. Brad's number 320-219-3542. Give him a call, get the data, test some of his products yourself to see how it works for you. And I think you're going to be pretty darn happy if you do. So, guys, let's jump into number 1, the High Limit Sprint Car Series. They're rolling the dice, and they are going to go head-to-head with the biggest, probably the baddest thing in all of dirt racing, right? The most notoriety of all series, the World of Outlaw Sprint Cars. We talked about this a couple weeks back when they bought that. When the High Limits bought the All-Stars from Tony Stewart, we're like, what do you think? Are they going to go head-to-head? What are they going to do? Well, it turns out they are straight up going head-to-head with the World of Outlaws. $250,000 to win the championship. So that's a big chunk of change. Big announcement today. Bert, what was the big announcement?
Your 5-time defending World of Outlaw Sprint Car champion, Brad Sweet, will be following the new series and will be leaving the World of Outlaws.
I am absolutely flabbergasted. So, Coach, your thoughts on this, right? I mean, we talked about this. You're like, nah, that ain't gonna happen. They're gonna kind of be like the Castro Flow Racing Night in America or thing, and they're gonna be in addition to. Your thoughts when you saw this?
Yeah, well, obviously, my first thing came up is what's Casey King got a problem with World Outlaws for? Something's going on there. You know what I mean? There's something going on there. And then the big thing here is flow racing. That's who's running this deal. And I know they got stake in the ownership too now after reading that article. They're throwing in a bunch of money in this. They want the viewership. Flow's getting big. They're getting really big right now. I don't know if you guys are aware how much sports they do on there, but they bought out hockey. They own the USHL. They own the East Coast Hockey League. There is nonstop hockey on there too. And Flow Sports is getting really, really big right now. And they're really growing. So they're obviously throwing some money in this. I would say a lot of money. But my big question is what's the beef? What's going on here with Kyle Larson, Casey Kane, Brad Sweet, and the World Outlaws? That's what I'd like to know, because obviously there is. You're just not going to up and win that thing. What Bert said 5 times, and you're the defending, I think, back to back, is he not? So maybe 3 in a row. Who knows how many he's won? So there's something super, super fishy going on here. I don't know if that's ever going to come out, but I'm waiting to see what the real story is here.
Well, there was something that came out, right? So they announced as part of this announcement that there's no exclusivity clause. If you follow that series, you can race wherever the heck you want. You can do what you want. You win the points and you race 10 World of Outlaw shows also in addition to, so be it. I know that, I mean, Kyle Larson, there ain't nobody that races more than that guy. I mean, he could be in a cup car, a late model, a midget, World of Outlaws. He could be running All-Stars. I mean, you never know. The guy races all the time. Brad Sweet, I'm telling you right now, I mean, they're brother-in-laws, right? They're married. I think Kyle Larson was married to his sister. Is that how that works? And do you think for a minute that when he went to all those high limit races and he was the guy handling the redraw and doing that stuff, that he's sitting back going, I should be freaking racing. This is stupid. I don't want to be working at a racetrack. I want to be racing. So this gives him the flexibility to be able to race wherever the heck he wants. If there's nothing competing, that's a big deal right there. So I don't know if that's all of the story, but that's definitely part of it for sure.
Well, and I kind of agree with you, Ryan, in the fact, I mean, this is just speculation on my part, but I mean, I think some of these, Larson and Sweet, but other sprint car drivers are looking at the late model world and saying, look at these big purses the late model drivers are racing for, and they're not tied down to one division. I mean, Jonathan Davenport won over $2 million running an true outlaw schedule, just racing wherever he wanted to, where the sprint car drivers are kind of tied down to the World of Outlaw division, and can only race a handful of other races. And one other thing to point out about the schedule for the high limit series is they will not be racing the weekends of Crown Jewels. They're leaving those weekends open so the drivers can race in the Crown Jewel events.
Do you think so? They went to Pennsylvania. I don't remember if it was Williams Grove, to where they had the rain date. They had the rescheduled Tuscarora Classic. I think it was $75,000 to win, and then they had the World of Outlaw shows the next 2 nights, right? The National Open it was, and the World of Outlaw guys that were battling for points had to keep their stuff in the trailer. They didn't get to play. They didn't get to race, right? Do you think that they were sitting there going, "This is a bunch of bullshit"? Right? Like, we could go race for $75,000, but we flat out cannot. So do you think, I mean, you said, like, with the Crown Jewels and being able to kind of bounce around, money on the line, some of that probably stung just a little bit. And if a competing series, let's say that this series goes out, is it unrealistic that this high limit all-star deal, whatever it's going to be called, is it unrealistic to think that they could have in the next year or two at least $500,000 to win shows? I would say with what they're doing, wouldn't shock me at all, right? Now, under the current banner of the World of Outlaws, these drivers would not be, the World of Outlaw guys wouldn't be able to race that. So that, I don't know, it's going to be interesting for sure. Kraus, I think you unmuted yourself. You had something else you wanted to tune in on there?
No, nothing. Just like I said, just gonna be interesting to see. I think, I know travel money's big with that stuff. Be interesting to see what they come out with, what drivers are going to hop on board, if they're going to pay more for the travel money. Like I said, a lot of race teams, start pay is not where it needs to be. We're losing money going to these tracks. So, and, are they going to take these $100,000 races and turn them into 50 and then spread the wealth out here a little bit? There's a lot of teams talking about that too. So it's going to be interesting to see the landscaping here, what pans out over the next, probably month or so, and we'll really get a really good idea.
Yeah, PRI show is going to be great when some of these schedules come out for sure.
And I will give Ryan some credit because I believe it was you made the statement that when Kyle Larson gets into something, he doesn't do it small. He goes big.
Yeah, he definitely is he wants to win. He wants to be the best. It's going to be interesting. So we'll keep everybody in the loop the best we can. So a little bit of Wasota news, right? So we got big weekend coming up for Wasota Auto Racing. I know Coach Kraus going to be in attendance over in St. Cloud. Little shout out here to our friends at Fastlane Motorsports and Powder Coating in Ashland, Wisconsin, home of the Galloper chassis, proud sponsors of the best series in all of Wasota racing, the Northland Superstock Series, and they do custom powder coating, they do sandblasting, they do fabricating of any kind, they build race cars, they sell parts. Great group of people up there in Ashland, Wisconsin. Give Chris and the gang a call. Fastlane Motorsports and Powder Coating. So meetings, banquet, expo coming up this weekend. Coach Kraus, you got the agenda finally, literally just days before the meeting, right? You got the agenda. What should we expect to hear about following the meetings? Is there anything that stuck out to you from everything that you read on the agenda that might kind of rattle some cages, maybe be a surprise? Does anything stick out?
There's just a lot of little minor rule stuff. Nothing too crazy as far as the rules goes. I don't. I think a big discussion is going to be the point system. There's a lot of tracks that put in stuff about point system, heat points, show points. What we're going to do for national points. Getting the late models back to 30 shows. I saw. So I think that's going to be a big discussion. And I think we need to make sure we go in the right way with that to get some excitement, get some fan excitement back, get some driver excitement back. And who knows what they're going to come up with as far as a format and stuff like that. And there's been some talk about some format stuff too with the 100 too. So I think that's the main. The rules are the rules, Ryan. You know how they go. It's they're going to bring up something, and then if you don't have engine builders there, or a lot of these promoters don't really know. It's nothing against them. It's just they're not engine builders. What's Roller Rockers going to do putting it on a Midwest Mod or a Super Stock? Is it going to change anything out? You know what I mean? There's a lot more, little stuff like that's a little bit different, but see what happens with the transmission rule for street stocks, stuff, there's bigger stuff like that, but for the most part, the rules are rules. I'm more interested in the administrative stuff, see what's going to pan out, with points and, and stuff like that. Obviously, a couple, a few new board members coming on possibly, to see what happens. I'm excited to go down there and represent Viking Speedway and get everybody talking and see if we can hash out some stuff and have a good positive meeting, which I think it's going to be, talking with some promoters. And I've already had a few conversations with some already, so I think it's excited to go down there and hopefully work on some things. And like you said, Ryan, just get everybody on the same page and try to make Wasota as best we can.
Absolutely. And you brought up the points there, and I saw that Benji Fromke, he has a couple different series out there, promoter over at Cheyenne Speedway in Lisbon, very involved, always kind of bouncing ideas around. And he threw an idea out there, about maybe different show point format and rewarding heat winners a point. Every heat winner gets a point. And that's a tough deal, right? Because let's face it, the heat races, I talked to my buddy Brian about this, and it's like, let's face it, sometimes you get out there in a heat race and it's kind of one lane. So if somebody draws good, it's automatically a bonus point because they drew good, not necessarily. But I understand what he's trying to do. He's trying to make heat races matter again. Viking Speedway did that by paying the heat races, so quite honestly, with the way the format is right now, most tracks have 2 heat races per class. That's pretty typical. If you finish first or you finish fourth in the heat, it simply does not matter. You start in the same spot in the feature. Drivers coast around. They're meaningless. The fans know it. They're like, I don't even care to watch the heats because they mean nothing. But there is an alternative to this that we talked about. What if in the invert, right? What if you only inverted if there was one heat, if you were just a track with low car counts, you invert 4. But other than that, it doesn't matter how many heats there are. You invert the top 2. And that way, you have to get to the top 2. Now the heats mean something. If you're coasting around in 4th it means nothing. But you look at like Lucas Oil Races, World of Outlaws, guess what? It freaking matters if you win the heat race because you're going to start a hell of a lot further forward in the future. Invitationals, big specials, Wasota 100, you want to win the heat because you want to start in the front of the future. If they actually made the lineups, instead of having the affirmative action lineup system where they literally reward the guy that can't walk and chew gum, right? And they spin out and they get to start in the front row the next week, that is just terrible. Why not reward the people that are actually like going to the front, putting on the show, and make the heats matter for starting position in the future like it always used to be in the past? Coach, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's an interesting deal. I don't know. I'm torn on the. I'm really torn on the draw redraw point average deal. How about we line up heats by point average, Ryan, and then start the feature straight up by where you finish? You know what I mean? Like it take away the bickering that the draw's rigged to start the night. You know what I mean? All the draws rigged. Go Vikings be the draws rigged. Well, it ain't rigged if it's going by point average, or you know what I mean? Maybe line that up. And there's so many options out there. I just don't know what the best one is. I want to say you need to do what's exciting for the fans as well. Not just reward. Obviously, car counts are car counts, but you need to get the fans involved. So when fans show up to the racetrack, the first thing they think about, who's leading the points? What's going on with the modified championship? Who's doing this? Who's doing that? What's going on here? Who's this guy? You know what I mean? You got to get the fans excited too. So there's so many scenarios you could play out with what you want to do with the points and stuff, but something needs to be done. Definitely at track level and at the national level.
And that's going to segue right in exactly what we talked about into our next topic. But Bert, I have a question for you in regards to this, right? Because over in your neck of the woods, over in Shawano, everything's draw redraw over there, isn't it? For the late models?
No, for the weekly show, it's actually, I believe it's point average in the heat races, and then it's actually a 3-week point average in the heat races, and then also you have to make the invert, and then it's point average in the feature also.
For the late models too?
Yes.
Oh, no kidding. I did not know that. I thought the late models over there were draw redraw. I know the IMCA deal is point average.
Yeah.
So as a fan, okay, Kraus and I are both racers, been on the promoting side, fans, of course, too. But on a fan side of it, what would you prefer to see, right? Would you prefer to see time trials, right? And then you reward the person who's fastest and give them the front row? Would you rather see a draw for the heat and then a redraw for the feature, the invert? As a fan, what do you like?
No time trials for a weekly show. For a weekly show, you get casual fans and you don't want to bore them with time trials. I kind of like the way Shawano does it with the three week point average, lining them up that way for the heat races. And then you have to make the invert, and then it's point average in the feature. And if you're a new driver, because I think it's in Wasota, well, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm a driver and I go race at Red Cedar Speedway and it's my first time there and it's in July, you're going to start in the back no matter what, right?
No, you'll redraw between 5th and the last invert spot. So you won't get to start in the front 2 rows, but you can start 5th. Okay. If there's 2 heats, 5th to 8th.
Okay, good. Yeah, because like new drivers at Shawano, they, if this is their first time there, then they draw for their starting position in the feature if they make the invert. But I'm not sure if it's limited to certain positions or if they can draw anywhere in the invert.
Okay. Yeah, it's an interesting deal, and that's going to be talked about. It is every year, right? I mean, every single year the points are. With that said, no matter what the point format is, right? No matter what it is, I don't believe that's necessarily going to make more drivers want to chase points, right? That's a whole different conversation for another day. But we have a fan question here from a friend of the show, Alex. And he says, have fan bases in general, right? In general, not just racing, right? In general, lost their passion. Carlos, you're going to be able to answer a couple of questions here very well. I was talking to my good friend Jim. We were talking the other night. I think we probably talked till 4 a.m. about all this stuff, solving all the world's problems, right? You think about high school sports, you think about pro sports, you think about racing. It seems to me like there's a lot of lifeless, lacking passion fan bases out there, right? I remember, I'm going to bring this back to hockey. I'm from the Iron Range, northern Minnesota, right? In Minnesota, the state of hockey was huge on the Iron Range growing up, huge, right? And I remember, I mean, it is all across the state of Minnesota, but I remember the towns, just the following those towns had for hockey, right? I mean, it was absolutely crazy, and that's kind of gone. You think West Texas football, right? You think Texas football through high school, like the whole town's leaving. And racing kind of used to have that. I remember going to the Hibbing Raceway, and you had a whole section of Kelly Lakers. You had a whole section of like, Parkville and Virginia, Mountain Iron people. And I mean, and they were passionate. They were booing. They were cheering. They were flipping people off, fighting in the grandstands. I mean, it was absolute mayhem every night because they were passionate about their drivers and they were passionate about hating other drivers. I remember going to Viking Speedway, and I would love to get a copy of this tape because your wife taped it. Me and you came charging from last up to the front, and Dan Zeeson's leading, and Scott Dan Zeeson, one of the best drivers I've ever seen. Extremely talented race car driver, and he won all the time at the Viking Speedway, and they hated him. I mean, that whole place would boo him like absolute crazy. I didn't really think he was a hack or anything like that, but he won all the time. So he got booed like crazy. I pulled up next to him on a restart. I think there was maybe 6 to go. I think I was back in like 5th or 6th. We were kind of working our way up. I pulled up next to him. I pointed at him and I did this. And the whole crowd erupted. It was loud. Like it picked up on the video. I ended up getting second. Dan Zeeson ended up winning. But that's the kind of passion I'm talking about. Is that missing today all across the board?
Yeah, for the most part, it is, Ryan. And I think a couple things. I think too many classes, and I think there's too much traveling. I remember going up to Ada one night, and Steve Beach walked over to me and said, "Kraus, what are you doing here?" He's like, "You're a Viking Speedway car. You don't travel." And that was a knock. It used to be like that, Ryan. The Viking Speedway cars never travel, and it's still almost a little bit like that. So I think there's just traveling. And then I just remember back in the day, you had your core guys, but I remember when Rick Auckland would show up to Viking Speedway in his modified, or Ron Jones, it was like, holy smokes. You know what I mean? It was like Ron Jones is at Viking Speedway. You don't have that anymore because people are traveling. They're all over the place. TPO's all over the place. Nebraska's all over the place. These guys are all over the place. So everybody knows who they are. It's not like, hey, let's get the Northern guys. Let's get the Viking I-94 guys. Let's get the South Dakota, North Dakota guys. So there's a lot of traveling, and then too many classes. Everybody's kind of spread out. Viking Speedway had 3 classes all back in the day. Had your late model, your mod guys, and then your sportsman's guys. And I mean, like you said, they rip the teeth out of each other up in the grandstand. So it definitely has lost its luster a little bit. We're pretty fortunate still at Viking Speedway where we still have a pretty good fan base, because you still got, the Krauses, and, now Musics are coming up, and the Storks are young. The Bitsons are still around. The Tennises are still around. So you still have those names. So, yeah, but you're definitely right. It has dropped big time. I was a recruiting coordinator in hockey, and my favorite time of the year was playoffs. And I'd go to Mariucci, I'd go to Aldrich, I'd go to Thief River Falls, I'd go to Moorhead, I'd go to all these section championship games and just sit there and watch, Edina and Minnetonka or Eden Prairie, and you go watch Roseau and, it'd be Moorhead play each other. You know what I mean? You'd go up and watch Hermantown take on whoever they're Hibbing or whoever they were taking on, and Duluth East playing Grand Rapids or whoever it was. It's just, it's fallen off the map. And like you said, we got to make sure we're doing something to, make sure we get that drive back.
And I think that's a topic that we can kind of tackle in the off season is what are some things that the racing community as a whole, right? I mean, from promoters to fans to drivers and everybody in between, what can be done to reignite that passion and build that passionate fan base? Because would you agree that if the more passionate the fan base is, the more interest that's going to be developed in the sport and people wanting to be involved?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Jeff in the fact that traveling has really taken a lot out of rivalries and stuff, and also too many divisions. Just as an example, I mean, Shawano Speedway, the fans used to be, well, they still are, but I mean, I've heard stories back in the 60s and 70s. I mean, the grandstand was just crazy. There'd be fights sometimes because, of the rivalries on the track. But from 63 until the early 80s, there's only one division. So all the drivers are racing against each other. So you're going to develop some rivalries because week after week, race after race, you're racing against the same drivers. Where now with all these different divisions, you're not, it's not as easy for a rivalry to develop. And like Jeff said, a lot of drivers are just plain traveling. I mean, Nick Avalink is from, the Shawano area, but he only raced at Shawano a handful of times this year because he was traveling out west to race at Cedar Lake, Mississippi Thunder, and, other special races.
Yeah, Bert, you hit it right on the head right there. I mean, it is pretty darn hard to have rivalries when there's 10 cars in every class, right? Mm-hmm. If there's 30 cars in a class, you're going to have some rivalries. That is going to happen. So I think you're both spot on with that one. With that said, as far as tracks go right now, right? Or maybe an event or whatever you want to go with, what is the most passionate group of race fans that you've seen in recent years?
I mean, in my side of the state, I still say Shawano Speedway has some of the most passionate fans. And it's not just because I'm a homer and that's the track that I go to every week. I think in 2024, that'll be their 61st year of consecutive racing at the Speedway. So over the course of 61 years, you have fans that have been there for a good portion of those years, and they're just passionate about racing. But I've heard stories from the 70s, 60s and 70s, and some of those stories are pretty good.
That's good stuff. And I look at it right now, and we all watch a lot of racing online, right? And I like to watch the crowd when it kind of scans through when something happens. Like, are people up on their feet? There's some tracks out there, and I'm not going to name which tracks, but there's some tracks out there where they're scanning and stuff's going on, and like literally everybody is just sitting there watching their phone, watching the race, like not excited, not cheering. I'm like, oh, that ain't good, right? And then you look at some tracks, and there's like, man, people on their feet, and they're booing, and they're flipping people off, and they're cheering, and one right now that I would have to put on top of the list, and maybe it's the newness of everything, I'm not sure. But the Thunder City Speedway up in Thunder Bay, I mean, that is a passionate group of people up there. And now we got, in all fairness to all the other tracks, they've only brought racing back in the last couple of years, right? So it's kind of new still, but there's still a lot of people that were racing years ago that are heavily involved. So it's fun to see that passion. Let's talk about our weekly pick'ems, brought to you by buyraceshirts.com. So if you need hats, hoodies, t-shirts, jackets, apparel, banners, anything for your race team, for your business, whatever it may be, check them out online. Buyraceshirts.com. Jordan and the crew down in Montevideo, Minnesota do a hell of a job at a great price, great products. You'll be glad you did. So last week's big winners here, Bert. See if we got that old Kraus is still kind of frozen up there. So we'll kind of flip her over like that a little bit. We'll see if he comes back. We'll see if he comes back to us. So last week's big winners, Bert, kind of making a charge here, guy. So you and Mike both had 9 points. Curtis kind of had a little bit of a lead. Curtis only had 3 points. You closed the gap considerably here with just weeks to go. Dan had 7 points. Kent had 6. Myself and Jeff had 5. And like I said, Curtis and Bad Brad there, they had 3. If he's back, he is not. Okay, so current standings right now, Bert, you're only 2 points behind. 2-time defending reigning Pick'em champion Bert Lehman trying to go 3 in a row. Got a few races this weekend we're picking. Curtis going to try to hold you off. Dan at 205, 3 points ahead of Brad. Mike at 196, Kent at 191. I'm trying everything I can to catch Kent. I'm 7 points back from him. Kind of a little bit of a battle we got going on in the back is not so hot. Carlbert hasn't picked in like a month. Jeff is still 19 back trying to catch his brother. We're going to see if we got to clown him a little bit or if he can actually make it happen. So a look ahead to this week's races. Let's see if Kraus is back.
Yeah,
Are you
he's
back in the house? He is back in the house. All right. So the look ahead to this week's race is brought to you by our friends over at Zulie's Race Engine. This is the time of year, right? Racing season has subsided, and we're going to be looking forward to a 2024 season months away. Get on the list. What do you need to win? You need a good mill underneath the hood. What do you need to win championships? A dependable mill under the hood. That's what Zulie's Race Engines has to offer. Give Frank a call. Get on the list. Get your stuff to him to get freshened, updated, whatever you need to do. If you can't beat them, join them. So 2 big races this weekend, guys. We'll start with this one. We'll start up at BAPS up in Pennsylvania. The Les Stewart Showdown, $25,000 to win the final 410 sprint car race of the year. Now, I have no. Is there any relation to Shane Stewart there? I guess I don't know that.
I don't know.
It looks like some of the PA posse is going to be there. Some of the World of Outlaw guys that live in the area are going to go. That race, I believe, is on Flow. Not 100% positive on that, but that's a race to keep an eye on if you're a sprint car fan. But if you're a late model fan, because let's just face it, I mean, nothing against sprints, but late models are just cooler. It just is what it is. The Castro Flow Racing Night in America, their final weekend of the year, the Peach State Classic down at Sonoy in Georgia, doubleheader Friday and Saturday. 9 points, guys. 9 points separating your current point leader, Bobby Pierce, and Hudson O'Neill. So Bobby Pierce looking, right, to try to win 3. Could Hudson O'Neill steal the thunder from him on that final weekend and double up on championships here in the 2023 season?
Well, it's definitely a possibility. He's in really close striking distance. You know, it's not like he's way back. What is it, like 9 points?
9.
Yeah. So I mean, definitely. He has a legitimate shot to catch him this weekend.
You know a dark horse there? Air Force Ashton Winger. Hometown, home track. That's a hustle the high side type of deal. He could be a fun guy to watch there as well. So let's jump into the last lap, brought to you by Dirt Track Supply, home of the Aero chassis. Service a lot of tracks. If you need safety equipment, tires, parts, fab work, body work, whatever you may need, Ron and Trevor Anderson over in Watertown, South Dakota have built a fantastic business over the past several decades and service a lot of race cars. Great success on and off the track. Great people. Give them a call, Dirt Track Supply. So, Bert, a little bit of news over in eastern Wisconsin, if you like them fat tires on the late model.
Yeah, well, it's that time of the year when tracks are releasing their schedules, and I was looking at the schedule for Outagamie Speedway in Seymour, and they have late models on their schedule 9 times in 2024. 3 of those races are Dirt Kings races, and then the other ones, it just says late models. So I guess it's a possibility that they could be crate late models too, because I know some people have been trying to get crate late models into the area, but I'm hoping that, you know, it's the regular late models, at least the majority of the time. And what's interesting is we haven't talked about this a lot on the show, but there's a group trying to get racing started again at Lang Lake County Speedway in Anigo, and I'm assuming, late models were always on the card there. And last I heard that this group was hoping to race 6 times in 2024. So if they have late models on the schedule 6 times, there could be a lot of late model racing in eastern Wisconsin this summer. So that's something to keep an eye on. Now,
do a little
Langley,
digging, Bert. Do a little digging this week.
yeah,
See what's going on in Seymour. See if you can have some final answers.
yeah, because Langlade would be racing on Friday nights, and Seymour races Friday nights. So hopefully they would have, they don't have late models on the same nights, is what I'm saying. Hopefully they would work together and plan that out if that's the thing. And I do have one other tidbit from eastern Wisconsin. I know I texted this to you guys, but I don't think we talked about it on here. 141 Speedway, the Clash at the Creek has always been a 10,000 a win show. In 2024, it's going to be 2 nights like it normally is, but it's going to be 2 complete shows for 5,000 a win each night. So they're just, rather than having one driver take home $10,000, they're giving a chance to win $5,000 2 separate times.
I would much rather watch that than the double heats they run on night 1 and then the feature night 2. So I think that's going to be a good move by 141. Gondikla Speedway, Superior, Wisconsin. They put a lot of money on the line. I would say probably the premier, if not the premier, definitely in the top 3 as far as premier tracks in Wasota in the 2023 season. They got a lot going on over there. They put a big point fund together for the late models this past year. Pat Capella and KME stepping up. I don't have all the details yet. Late model drivers, stay tuned. But there is going to be some big money on the line for the Gondikla Speedway track champion in the late models in 2024. So, a couple other things here. Videographer Mason Aaron Videos has been doing our stuff here for a while. Good old Mason he's got a lot on the plate. Why? Because he does such great work. He's got a lot of like B-roll type stuff, highlight videos that he's doing, and it sounds like he's just gonna have to kind of downsize his availability to us. So if you're a videographer and if you want to maybe help out the One to Go show, give us a message, email, text us, message us on Facebook. We're definitely looking for somebody to do our video editing for us. And apparel, jump onto Facebook. We do have a link on there to go to our online store to get our apparel. Christmas season is coming. Kraus, any other news that you heard in central Minnesota, Wasota country? Any rumors? I'm sure there's going to be quite a few after this weekend, but anything that sticks out from this past week?
No, nothing too crazy. I have been really paying too much attention, kind of in hockey mode right now. I'm still dealing with some Speedway stuff, trying to wrap up some things at the end of the year at Viking Speedway. But I really haven't really heard from any drivers. Kind of the only thing we've been kind of debating on right now is with the short trackers and Wasota Hornet kind of thing going on in our area. That's some stuff that we're going to talk about. I got to talk to some promoters here this week about that. But other than that, it's just kind of been all fledged hockey, and like I said, get through the meetings here with Wasota stuff, and then go from there. Yeah,
it'll be interesting. I'm sure you'll have a lot for us coming back next week. So let's get into our final segment here, boys. 3 bold predictions brought to you by Mason Aaron's Videos. Check his stuff out on YouTube and on Facebook. Does great work, great guy. Off the board this week, we'll have our accountability section, our Purple Daily. I stole this kind of from Purple Daily, our accountability session. So, Bert, you got a lot come off the board here this week. We'll start with the ones that you got wrong, okay? Episode 168, you said David Gravel would win the points by less than 50 points. Well, he didn't win the points at all. Episode 168, you said Brad Sweet would get 3rd. That did not happen. Episode 184, you said the Reaper, Ryan Gustin, would finish in the top 3. Had a shot. He just did not have a good weekend at all. This past week, you said that nobody would win more than 1 feature this weekend in the late models at the World Finals. RTJ doubled up. And you said that Brad Sweet would finish ahead of David Gravel all 3 nights. Well, that was done after night 1 because David Gravel parked it in Victory Lane. Now, you did have a couple correct. We'll go back to episode 165. Dennis Erb Jr., your last year he won the championship in World of Outlaws. You said he would finish outside of the top 3. Well, he was outside the top 5. So, yeah, he had a rough year. And you said Mike Marlar would win at least one this weekend, and he did. He parked it in Victory Lane. Looked really good in that new ride, that Skyline Motorsports ride. So I had a few come off the board here as well. Episode 164, I said David Gravel would be the champion, and that did not happen. So this past week, I said that Matt Williamson would have the best average finish of all the drivers in the Super Dirt Car Series. That was not the case. Matt Shepard did. And I said that Donnie Schatz would have a pair of top 5s. Typically runs pretty good at Charlotte. And, yeah, he just did not have a very good weekend in the 15. So that was wrong. But I did have one. Now, the jury's out on this. I'm going to let you guys decide. So Jeff did not, we didn't have a chance to talk. He was busy today. So Jeff did not give me a yes or no. But I said that the NASCAR championship weekend, between the 3 nights, at least 2 of the nights, it would come down to something happening in the final 15 laps to determine the champion. Okay. Now, in the Cup race, there was really nothing there. That was nothing. Obviously, in the Xfinity race, I mean, that was the leader got a freaking flat tire, so that was for sure. But the truck race, they had 4 overtime finishes, and the battle for the championship, the guy got 5th and 6th. The guy that got 6th got second in the points. He was like 12th or so. Got next to him, turned him sideways a little bit, didn't quite get by. That came down to 4 overtimes there. Would you say that comes down to something that happened in the last 15 laps?
Yeah.
All right, so we'll make sure Jeff gives me some credit there. And then good Jeff here, he had 2. Now get this, talk about spot on. He said that between the World of Outlaw late model races and the World of Outlaw sprint car races, there would be 11 podiums of the 18 possible podiums between the I guess it would be 6 features, so it's 18 possible podiums. He said at least 11 of the drivers that finished on the podium would be non-World of Outlaw regulars. There was exactly 11 drivers that were non-World of Outlaw regulars. That's like a clean sweep right there for someone's get a bonus point. And then he said RTJ would have a better average finish than the 32 of Bobby Pierce. That definitely happened as well. So our standings here, guys, I got 38. I got 49 correct and 77 incorrect, 38.9. Bert, you have 48 correct, but you have 85 incorrect, 36.1. Coach and the listeners, 12 correct, 56 incorrect, 17.6. Might throw an extra bonus point down there for that home run that he hit, that clean sweep. So let's start. What we do every week is we take 3 bold predictions, sometimes not so bold, racing related, typically show related, something that absolutely did happen or did not happen. We make 3 laps around the track. We each make a prediction. Coach Kraus, what do you got?
Well, we're going to stick with the late models. Obviously, I think that's what everybody's going after. Bobby Pierce is going to DNF both nights at Sonoya this weekend.
Wow. Haterade. You are drinking some haterade right there. All right. So the smooth operator going to self-destruct and DNF 2 nights. Okay. Assuming that would probably lose him the championship, I'm guessing. All right. Bert.
I'll stay with the late models, and I will say RTJ will put to rest the driver of the year discussion and double up and win both features this weekend.
Okay. Well, I'll stick on the late model theme for the first round of picks here. And I'm going to kind of be the anti-Coach Kraus on this one. And I'm going to say the smooth operator is going to seal the deal on not 1, not 2, but 3 Touring Series championships in the 2023 season. Coach?
I'm going to go Turbo Tyler Erb's going to win Friday night.
All right. That would be good for dirt track racing. It just is what it is. All right. Turbo Tyler Erb gonna win. Now, let's clarify this. A main, right? Not hot laps, not time trials, not a B main. He's gonna win the feature. Okay. Kraus is like, I'm not even gonna respond to you. All right, Bert.
I am going to say I'm going to the sprint car world and say the World of Outlaws will drop their exclusivity clause this off season.
You sniped me. That was my next pick. So they're gonna drop. So World of Outlaws is gonna drop. So they paid quite a bit extra for drivers to do that, but with what's going on there, there's a pretty good odds of that happening. Bert beat me to it. So World of Outlaw sprint cars dropping the exclusivity deal in incentives and whatnot. You know what? I'll go to the sprint car world here then as well. Between these 5 drivers, David Gravel, Carson Macedo, J-Mac, Buddy Kofoid, and Hot Sauce Giovanni Scelzi, 5 regulars on the World of Outlaw Sprint Car Tour here in 2023. At least 2 of those particular drivers will drop off the World of Outlaw and follow the high limit deal in 2024. Coach Kraus.
Last one. We are going Hudson O'Neal is going to win the finale on Saturday and then also win the Castro Flow Night in America Championship.
Okay, a little parlay there. All right, Bert.
I probably shouldn't do this, but I will go after this weekend of racing. Our pick'ems there'll be a tie in our pick'ems for the top spot.
All right. You're calling your shot here. Calling a shot. Okay. Look at my third and final one here. Mike Marlar has a better average finish on the weekend than both RTJ and Bobby Pierce. He's been hot, doesn't follow a series, kind of that unspoken guy, but boy, he's been good in that 157. So that's it. Any closing thoughts there? Anything we missed that you maybe want to touch on, or?
No, just we're coming. We always say there is no off season, but we're getting close to whatever there is of an off season. So enjoy what racing there is left.
Yeah, there's racing every week, it seems like, but just a whole lot less. So
yeah,
there'll be a lot more people watching. So I tell you what, thanks to all of our great sponsors. Support them any way that you can. For me, Ryan Aho, Coach Kraus, Bert Lehman, thanks for tuning in to the One to Go Show.